a production of the New Jersey Courts.
I grew up in Mecklenburg County, Virginia, which is in southern Virginia, about, I'll say 6 miles from the Virginia-North Carolina border. Being segregated was not a good experience. You know, not having the same quality of educational resource as everyone else was not a good experience. But when you're a kid, as you're asking me now, as a kid, you don't think about that. You knew that things weren't fair because you couldn't go some of the same places as your counterparts of a different race. They had separate entrances for the movies. In some of the stores, you couldn't shop on the same floor. And of course, schools were segregated and the community was not integrated at all. You know, my dad, was in the service, and he tells a story of how when he was in the service, when they were catching a train from New York, when they crossed the Mason-Dixon line, the train stopped and they had to go sit in the back, even though they had served the country. My mom tells stories in a little country town in the county where she grew up. Some people would not allow black people to walk on the same sidewalk. Then in 1969, it was forced, for what I call it, forced integration. And that's when myself and my twin sister was the first time we went to integrated school, 6th grade. But I had a sense it was changing, and when I was probably 8 or 9, and also too, what was significant, when I was 6, 7, 8, the Klan used to march in parades in my town. I realized that they were marching significantly because they were opposed to integration. When I was 6, I think it was 7 years old, the Klan was marching in the parade. And after the parade was over, the Klan used to march, just walk on the streets with their hoods. And it was an effort to intimidate. Somehow or another, I got separated from my parents and my relatives. And I was just standing there, and this Klan was right on top of me. And he just jumped at me and just said, "Boo." I think just really to scare me. And I just remember being frozen. And I just remember feeling people grab me and pull me back into, for lack of a better word, the black crowd. So that was significant. And I think it's important for young people to understand the history, in the context of look at it from the perspective of perseverance. Look at it from the perspective of strength. Don't look at it from the perspective of hate. Don't look at it from the perspective of depression. Look at it from that perspective. And also look at it from the perspective of triumphant. I mean, I sit here today and I'm 5 or 6 generations. And I'm sitting here today in my wildest dreams. And quite frankly, nobody else ever thought I would do it. So there's a lot of heroes. That's why I never tried to promote myself as some hero. There's a lot of heroes. There was a girl, I'll never forget her name, was Jeanette Harper. And I'll tell you about heroes. Jeanette Harper was a girl who a lot of kids used to tease all the time. Used to tease her. And I'll never forget when they integrated the schools the first year, they would made us sit in the back of the bus. So when the bus got to our neighborhood, Jeanette sat on the front seat and would not move. And that bus driver stopped the bus, and I'll never forget this, it's burned into my mind. She stood over top of Jeanette and was screaming at Jeanette to go to the back of the bus. Now, we're like 6th grade. Now, the rest of us were sitting in the back of the bus. Jeanette stood there, and Jeanette was a lot larger than us, and Jeanette, frankly, was bigger than this lady at 11. But I'll never forget, Jeanette sat there like a Rosa Parks. She sat there, she didn't look left, she didn't look right, and this woman stopped the bus in the middle of the street, holding up traffic, screaming at Jeanette to sit in the back. Jeanette did not go in the back. Now, Jeanette ended up getting suspended from school. Jeanette Harper's a hero. So there's a lot of heroes out there. We just don't always see them. We just don't always know about them. So I will always try to convey to people, your prominence is in how you conduct yourself. My parents had a lot of tremendous stories. Stories of pain, stories of hurt, but they always were tremendous people of faith. And I never heard my parents, for everything that they saw and they went through, I never heard them say they disliked someone because of the color of their skin, despite what they went through. I never heard them say that. So my parents always taught us that segregation was not the right way. It was wrong, but we also had to conduct ourselves in a way, with dignity and respect, and that our family used to always say, God is going to work it out. I mean, that was the mantra, God was going to work it out. Sometimes you would feel angry, but my parents were such a guide, for me. And my grandfather was a minister. And so they were such a guide, and they were steeped from a religious perspective. So you would often get angry. You didn't like how you were treated, but you also understood that's the way it was. That's the way it was. The wonderful part about all the stories is that my parents never disliked someone because of the color of their skin. My family and my parents taught us human beings first, proud of who we are. Because my family on both sides I'm the fifth generation, I think, fifth or sixth generation from my county. My family on both sides were slaves in the county. In our family cemetery, on both sides, we have tombstones of my great-grandparents who were slaves, who were born slaves. I mean, it's tremendously triumphant. And I think for me, the most triumphant thing is you go through life where people are looking at you differently because of the color of your skin. And now as a judge, I get to make sure every day people come in, they're treated with fairness, with dignity and respect, regardless of the color of their skin. And I said that in my swearing in, and I said that's a wonderful thing. But I also talked about how me being there is from the perseverance of the people of old. And I'm not just talking about black people, I'm talking about a lot of white people and other people of different cultures who really fought for what was right, who came down to the South, and who many lost their life to fight for what was right. So I've always looked at myself as having to be, as to honoring their sacrifices by how I conduct myself. And I think for me to say, well, the experience I went through, I hate this person, that wouldn't be honoring. I mean, A, I don't feel like that. Two, I think to do that would be dishonoring, the sacrifices. Because at the end of the day, the ideals of this country have always been great. And the ideals are universal ideals. They don't belong to anybody, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, regardless of persuasion. They belong to all of us. I'm always mindful of how important it is to treat people with fairness, dignity, and respect. For me, it's just very important for that to be paramount in how I carry myself and how I treat other people. It's paramount to me, and I'm never going to waver from that. And to waver from that would be so inconsistent with my parents and with their sacrifices and the sacrifice of all people who went through so much of all colors. For somebody like me to sit here and have an opportunity, and that's strong for me. I mean, every day of my life, every day, not a day to go by I don't think about it. It's not a day that I don't put that robe on, I don't think about it. And I try my best to honor it. I mean, I'm certainly not perfect, I'm a work in progress, but I honor it every day. And a lot of it goes back to growing up. That's why I think for me, being a judge it really is a triumph, because I get the chance to make sure everybody's treated with respect, and I think I'm a good judge of fairness. I think I'm a good judge of people, and I think a lot of the basic foundation are things that history teaches us. I mean, the stories that I learned from my parents and my grandparents going back to slavery are lessons that serve me or anyone well today: faith, perseverance, family, respect, dignity. That can serve you in any generation.